Final Destination Bloodlines, the 6th installment in the Final Destination franchise. In this video, we will be diving straight into its deeper themes and symbolism. There will be spoilers. Let us begin. Now, this film expands the Final Destination timeline in both directions. It is set in the present day, but it depicts the fallout of events that took place in the 1960s, well before the Flight 180 explosion of the first movie. It begins, we encounter a young couple. Paul is taking his girlfriend Iris up the brand new Skyview restaurant tower. What Iris doesn't know is that Paul is about to propose to her, and what Paul doesn't know is that Iris is pregnant. And very early on, we are introduced to a prop that will reappear throughout the movie to devastating effect: a coin. We see a boy fishing this coin out of a fountain, and he's scolded for it. Don't steal coins from the fountain, it's bad luck. And of course, this is drawing on a very familiar superstition. To this day, people around the world throw coins into fountains, supposedly for good luck. It's a symbolic act, whether people are conscious of it or not. A miniature sacrifice, the offering of a precious item into the element that brings life, water. Now, this pagan practice dates back at least to Roman, British and Celtic mythology, and according to anthropologist Bill Maurer, it's not so much about the payment, the value of the coin, but how the coin itself has a quasi-magical property people think comes with it. It has a connection of sovereignty and represents a token of authority.
Go ahead, Janet. Kiss it.
Can't believe I ever went out with you.
Can't believe you were so lucky.
So if throwing a coin into a fountain is associated with good luck, then stealing a coin from a fountain is associated with bad luck. And Final Destination Bloodlines begins with a coin being stolen, as I've mentioned, and you could say that what follows is a cascade of bad luck. In the Final Destination universe, death is sovereign.
What if us being here, right now, was the plan from the beginning?
And thus, his apparent honouring of human superstitions, good luck and bad luck, is just one of the ways he likes to play with his subjects.
Have you ever seen anything creepy or ominous? An in-your-face irony kind of thing? Recognizing those signs usually means the difference between life and death.
Now, of course, if you learn how to read the signs in the Final Destination universe, you can, to some degree, see what death will do next. And it's interesting, Steph, the protagonist in this new installment, she says, it's math. It's a logical sequence, looking at the objects around you and seeing, okay, what's death going to do with those in order to bring about someone's demise? There's a kind of chilling, clockwork nature to it. And before we continue, it's worth reminding ourselves what happens in a typical Final Destination movie. 1. Young person has a premonition of a big explosive event, resulting in large loss of human life. 2. Young person is sufficiently disturbed by said premonition to get out of harm's way, along with some friends. Yay! But this creates a wrinkle in reality, because these people who were meant to die in the big incident are now alive. 3. Young person discovers that death is now killing off the survivors in the order that they would have died in the accident, and along the way there are signs and mini premonitions revealing who will die next and how. 4. Young person and friends attempt to thwart death's design with apparent success. 5. Young person's relationship with someone of the opposite sex is tested, but ultimately strengthened. But 6. Death has the last laugh, and very rarely do any of the characters survive into the next movie. Now, what does Final Destination Bloodlines do with the formula? Well, it does honour it, largely. The opening set piece is very well set up. The catastrophe is initiated by the coin, when the boy throws it off the rooftop and it gets sucked into a vent. The Johnny Cash song Ring of Fire playing on the radio foreshadows the engagement ring on the rooftop, and the Skyview restaurant itself becoming a literal ring of fire. Turns out that this is the opening premonition, but this time it has been placed in the mind of a different character, Steph. And Iris, the central character in the premonition, is Steph's grandmother. So Steph is dreaming her grandmother's premonition from decades ago. That's different. We learn that after Iris had the premonition of the Skyview collapsing and everyone dying, She intervened, snatching the coin off the mischievous boy before he could throw it over the edge, extinguishing the fire, telling people to get off the glass dance floor.
Everyone needs to get off the dance floor!
And remarkably, everyone survived. In the other 5 movies, the visionary manages to save him or herself and some friends from the initial disaster, but the disaster still happens and lots of people still die, because the protagonist is unable to evacuate everyone. But here, Iris manages to prevent the disaster entirely. It's a spectacular life-saving intervention, the most successful we have ever seen in the franchise. But it also means that there are now a lot of people on death's list, people who are meant to die in the Skyview.
I saved a lot of lives that night, lives that were never meant to be saved. But Death doesn't like it when you mess with his plans.
It's like a coiled spring. The more lives you save, the tighter that spring is coiled. And now Death has a lot of work he wants to do. And these survivors go on to have children. And their children have children.
It all started with Grandma. Death is coming for us because we were never supposed to exist.
And as you would expect from its title, that's what Final Destination Bloodlines really presses into. The hereditary nature of death. In the decades since her premonition, Iris has been learning the ways of death. She has isolated herself in a safe house. And in doing so, she has been protecting her family from death in ways that they could not understand.
This book, it will show you everything you need to know to keep our family safe.
Because as soon as she dies, death will come for all her descendants. Each installment in the Final Destination franchise reveals a little bit more about death's methods and possible ways to combat them. In Final Destination 2, there is the suggestion that new life can invalidate death's list.
Some people say there's a balance to everything. For every life, there's a death. For every death, there is a life. But the introduction of life that was not meant to be, that could invalidate the list. Force death to start anew.
In that film, it was suggested that if a survivor of the crash were to give birth to a baby, things would be okay.
There was a pregnant woman in a white delivery van.
If she gives birth to a baby that would have died in that car crash,
A brand new soul that was never part of Death's design.
It throws the whole list out of whack and we start over with a clean slate.
Now, a woman called Isabella does give birth in Final Destination 2, but it turns out that she was never meant to die in the crash in the first place. So the question was left hanging. If a survivor gives birth, does that really invalidate death's list? Well, Final Destination Bloodlines gives us a definitive answer. Loads of the survivors from the Skyview Tower went on to have children, including Iris herself, but death is still coming for each and every one of them and their descendants. So it seems that having a baby does not invalidate death's list. So the Final Destination 6 characters seek out William Bloodworth for themselves to see if they can glean any more information. And this is the last movie Tony Todd did before he died. As always, it's a great performance. When asked if it is possible to stop death, he responds with the following.
There are only 2 ways. If you take a life, you get the time that person had left.
And that idea was introduced in Final Destination 5.
So you let death have somebody else in your place, and then you take their spot in the realm of the living, all the days and years that they've yet to live. And they take your place in death. Then the books are balanced.
Wait a minute. We kill someone, we get their life?
I don't make the rules.
So that's one way of gaming the system. Murder. Thankfully, our protagonists reject that strategy.
What? No, I'm not gonna kill someone. Maybe we should let the guy finish.
So what's the second option, Mr. Bloodworth?
Then to truly break the cycle, you have to die.
He goes on to describe Kimberly, the protagonist from Final Destination 2. She managed to cheat death by drowning, causing her heart to stop. For a moment she was medically dead, and then she was brought back. But Bloodworth says this is a risky strategy. The characters in Bloodlines try to achieve the same thing when it's Bobby's turn to die. Eric gives him some peanuts, triggering anaphylactic shock. The hope is that Bobby's heart can be stopped, so that Eric can bring him back. But death seems to recognise what they're trying to do and kills both of them, brutally. As Bloodworth warns, if you F with death, things get messy. And as you'd expect from a Final Destination movie, it really twists the knife at the end. Steph falls unconscious while trapped in the caravan underwater, in a very similar manner to Kimberly in Final Destination 2. Charlie, her brother, brings her back, and it seems that all is well, but due to a technicality, both are still on death's list, because while Steph stopped breathing, she did not flatline, and therefore she was not medically dead. And the onslaught continues as planned. The final collision is a culmination of elements from throughout the franchise. The coin is involved once again, it gets wedged in the point system of a train track. The opening shot of the film is this very same train track, with Iris and Paul driving across it. That's reminiscent of the car crossing the track in Final Destination 1. The train derails, like at the end of Final Destination 3, and in the resulting carnage, Steph and Charlie are crushed by logs from a truck, like the one in Final Destination 2. The film also provides an origin story for William Bloodworth. We discover that he was a little boy on the Skyview. His life was saved by Iris. And now that Iris is dead, death is coming for him. His final speech is notable. He says, "I intend to enjoy the time I have left. Life is precious. Enjoy every second. You never know when." In the Final Destination universe, this is perhaps the best you can do.
I'm not going to take another day for granted. Maybe it's time to stop talking about doing stuff and actually start doing it.
You only live once, right?
Aside from Iris, William Bloodworth is the character with the most understanding of death's design. So it's notable that he has no desire to try and cheat death himself. He has reached a place of acceptance. But I do sympathise with the young protagonists. They want to try and solve the problem. They're railing against death. Something feels malevolent about death's action in these films. There's a sadistic quality to it.
It's not only horrible, but can you feel how vicious it was?
Easy.
In these films, death is very much framed as the enemy. And that's a very Christian idea. The last enemy to be destroyed is death. But what the Final Destination films also get right is that this is not an enemy that we can destroy by ourselves. In this film, death, as we've said, is passed down through the generations. And that's reminiscent of the Christian idea of original sin. The first human, Adam, grasped in selfishness from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, plunging the world into curse. And his perishing, dying nature has been passed down through the generations to all his descendants. Death came for Adam, and it's coming for all of us too. But that's not where the biblical story ends. For centuries, our culture has been meditating upon another figure known as the second Adam, Jesus Christ, God the Son who entered into creation, taking on a human body in order to answer the curse introduced by the first Adam. And what fascinates me is the means by which Jesus defeats the enemy of death in the biblical narrative. He doesn't come to earth with a means of avoiding death or bypassing death. No, he himself goes through the most agonizing death on his tree, the cross, sacrificing himself in our place. He punches through death and emerges on the other side into glorious resurrection life, and his claim is that all who are connected to him will participate in that same resurrection life beyond death. So, like Bloodworth, Christ did not try to avoid or postpone his death. No, he let death do its absolute worst to him. But through it, he brought about the redemption of the cosmos. Jesus defeated the enemy of death by dying, which I think is pretty stunning. Now, whatever you make of that account, it has been profoundly influential on our culture and storytelling. I think it's why we're so moved by stories in which the hero sacrifices himself. As Antonio Garcia Martinez says, the Western mind is like a tuning fork calibrated to one frequency, the Christ story. Hit it with the right Christ figure, and it'll just hum deafeningly in resonance. The Final Destination films recognise the value of self-sacrifice to some degree. As Bloodworth says,
"And to truly break the cycle, you have to die."
The laying down of one's life in these films does break death's cycle on a small scale, but death remains supreme in any ultimate, eternal sense. The franchise takes a very postmodern view of reality, in which death always has the last laugh. The best you can do is postpone your death. And any notion of life beyond death is usually dismissed as an idealistic fantasy.
If you die and then there's nothing, then they're just dead, and they don't know. And if they are up in heaven with Lincoln and Gandhi, do you think they really care about our high school graduation?
In Bloodlines, during the burial of Howard, we hear words read from Revelation 21 verse 4. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death, or mourning, or crying, or pain, for the old order of things has passed away. This is the Bible's vision of the new creation, humanity's future beyond death in Christ. But in the film, these words are presented as nothing more than background noise to the mechanical, inevitable onslaught of death, the victory of death. So the films acknowledge Christianity's presence in the world, but refuse to find remedy within it. And I think that's what gives them their disturbing quality. They appeal to our Christian roots, what we expect to happen in a good story: light overcoming darkness, death being defeated, resurrection. This is what we yearn for. This is what our culture has been meditating on for centuries. And that's what the films tap into, but then they pull the rug out from under our feet and twist the knife, as death always gets the last laugh. And if something feels wrong about it, the protagonists that we grow to care for and understand, they all die every time. So there we go. Final Destination Bloodlines. I think it's a solid addition to the franchise. Thanks so much for watching. Do subscribe if you'd like to stay in the loop. If you'd like to go deeper, you can join our Discord community, link in the description below, and that's a great place to hang out. And if you'd like to support the channel, you can go to patreon.com/Thomas Thorogood. From just $1 a month, you can get access to a growing archive of bonus content. I'm so grateful to all of you for watching my videos. Thank you so much for your support, and I will see you next time.